Hello, my friends. Today, changes are continuing to unfold along the front lines. This situation is becoming more challenging by the hour. But let's start with the situation at the border. In the Kursk direction, there are still no new changes and there is no information about any new offensive actions. The number of shelling in the Sumy region remains low, so the situation there has stabilized. However, in the Kharkiv direction, the level of shelling is much bigger. Here, the Russians are trying to destroy Kharkiv and are occasionally launching guided bombs on the city. A few days ago, they also attempted to break through to the village of Liptsi, again trying to move closer to Kharkiv, but the Ukrainian forces repelled all attacks and there are no reports of new offensive actions in the area. Fighting continues around Vovchansk. The Russians might be hoping that with the arrival of North Korean troops, they'll be able to free up 50,000 of their own soldiers who were gathered for the Kursk direction and possibly send them towards Kharkiv to push as far as possible and create the buffer zone they've been dreaming of. But for now, the battles continue and they have made no new gains. What's interesting is that they are so excited about the arrival of North Korean troops that they've forgotten their earlier claims about having the strongest army and been able to capture all of Ukraine in 3 days. But that's not all. North Korea is already almost entirely isolated from the normal world, but reports are coming in that because of the deployment of North Korean soldiers to Russia, their family will now be completely isolated. The North Korean government has taken the families of soldiers sent to Russia hostage. Pyongyang is relocating the families of soldiers to isolated locations for control and to combat rumors, according to South Korean lawmaker Lee Sung-kwe. Intelligence also reveals that Russia has recruited many translators for the North Korean troops. North Korean soldiers have strong physical endurance and morale, but they lack knowledge of modern combat, which could lead to high losses on the front lines. Overall, something terrible is happening, but what's even worse is that the US doesn't seem to understand why these troops are in Russia. Maybe they're just here for a tour, or maybe they want to visit Moscow, or even go to the front to see how things are going. Here is what Austin had to say.
Well, our analysts they continue to look at this. Now we are seeing evidence that there are North Korean troops that have gone to Africa. Now, excuse me, not Africa, but Russia. What exactly they're doing, left to be seen. These are things that we need to sort out.
It's hard to comment on this situation. Let me know what you think in the comments. Now let's move on to the Pokrovsk direction, where Ukraine is losing another fairly large city. To start with, the Russians haven't stopped their destruction of Myrnograd, constantly shelling the city. FPV drones are actively working in the area. They are also storming Promень and Myrolubivka, but there have been no significant advances in the past day. Meanwhile, battles for Lysivka continue, with the Russians throwing large reserves into daily assaults, but they are unable to break through the Ukrainian defense. In Soledar, however, the situation is very dire. It's now confirmed that the Russians have made further advances and a significant portion of the city is already under their control. Their confirmed advance is about 1 kilometer, and according to recent reports from a Ukrainian soldier, even the central part of the city is now under their occupation. In Soledar, we've lost control of the eastern, southern and central parts of the city, with only the western and northern parts still under our control, said a soldier with the call sign Muchnoy. As we can see, events are unfolding rapidly and the Russians are applying a lot of pressure. It's possible that Soledar could be completely lost in the coming days or even hours, unfortunately. Furthermore, um, so yesterday evening, um, and overnight, so the Russians have advanced closer to Novodmitrivka by 1 kilometer and 400 meters. They've also made progress in the fields around Tsukurane, moving about 1 kilometer and 100 meters. Overall, the speed of the Russian advance is increasing. Today, the Russians also managed to get very close to Izmailivka, and the situation there is worsening by the day. So late yesterday evening, Ukrainian forces reported that Izmailivka had already fallen into Russian hands. The front is collapsing rapidly, and it seems we are unable to stop it. In the Kurakhove direction, the Russians continue to assault Katerynivka and Antonivka. No new breakthroughs were recorded in the past 24 hours, but the Russians have made progress in the area in recent days, and it's only a matter of time before they push further. Their activity is extremely high, with around 20 assaults per day, burning through large reserves and racing to capture as much territory as possible. In the Vuhledar direction, the fighting also continues. The Russians are attempting to break through to the outskirts of Bogoyavlenka, Shala Novoukrainka, and conducting offensive actions near Velika Novosilka. However, there are no new changes along the front line at this time. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, the Russians are still trying to advance near Robotine, but have had no success. However, there are worrying reports that the Russians are preparing for a major offensive here. Ukrainian forces are once again reporting increased activity, and there is a possibility that they will attempt to at least reach the settlement of Orikhiv to regain the territory lost during the Ukrainian counteroffensive. For now, we wait. In the Kherson direction, the situation has remained unchanged for a long time. The right bank is regularly shelled, and there are occasional reports of attempts to break through to the islands. However, the Ukrainian forces hold their defense, and no changes have been reported. Now, back to the most active fronts. The situation near Toretsk is also difficult. Russian forces have managed to advance, and nearly half of Toretsk is now under their control. They have begun regrouping for a new wave of attacks, with shelling observed yesterday and today. It's important to know that the loss of Toretsk opens a direct path to Konstantinivka, which is a serious concern. In the Chasiv Yar direction, after their breakthrough, Russian forces have halted and are currently regrouping. They continue shelling, and it seems they will now attempt to advance from the south into Chasiv Yar, as all the attempts to push through the canal have been unsuccessful. Meanwhile, near Soledar, Russian forces have managed to capture a small piece of territory in the fields, with ongoing clashes reported there. However, their specific goals for advancing in this area remain unclear. It's possible they are trying to draw Ukrainian forces away from Chasiv Yar and Siversk. We'll have to wait and see how events unfold. In the Siversk direction, Russian forces have claimed the capture of the village of Serebryanka, but Ukrainian officials have yet to confirm this advance. We hope this remains unconfirmed, as losing the village would significantly worsen the situation. For now, no new attacks have been reported, with Russian forces sticking to shelling in the area. Meanwhile, in the Crimea direction, the battles for Terne and Torsk continue. The Russians are trying to completely push Ukrainian forces out of this territory, but as of today, there have been no new changes along the front line. In the Borova direction, Russian forces continue assaulting Lozova, intensifying their shelling of the entire frontline region in an attempt to weaken Ukrainian positions ahead of upcoming offensives. It seems they are indeed focused on breaking through to Borova, which is now just 11 kilometers away. South of Borova, the battles for Rekivka and Novomykhailivka continue, but no significant changes have been reported. In the Kupiansk direction, the Russians are assaulting Holubivka and Petropavlivka while advancing across the fields from Pishane. Additional assaults are underway southward of Kolesnikivka. As for Kruglякivka, Ukrainian officials still don't confirm Russian advances, and no new attacks have been recorded in the past 24 hours. The front line remains unchanged here. Meanwhile, Lukashenko has made a statement claiming that the US will not help rebuild Ukraine after the war and that everything needs to be resolved as quickly as possible.
И мы будем вместе, и никогда вы Украине ничего не поможете после войны. Не будете вы восстанавливать Украину. В Америке уже сейчас говорят, что Украина богатая, она готова земли отдать, она готова там полезные ископаемые, нужные для мира и американцев, высокотехнологичное сырье отдать. Вон они о чем говорят. Поэтому мы с украинцами найдем общий язык. Надо сейчас закончить эту войну. Поэтому ядерное оружие не для того, чтобы это была страшилка, а это сдерживающий фактор.
Lloyd Austin also commented on the war's end. The war in Ukraine will end with peace negotiations, said the US Defense Secretary after meeting with Pope Francis. We will continue to support Ukraine, as we've said, and the Ukrainian authorities will decide when it's time to sit at the negotiation table. But as I've said before, this conflict will end with some kind of negotiations at some point. Friends, what do you think about these statements? Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.